assembly line. Every day I'm working hard for you. I don't mind working, baby, not as long as you've been true.
I think most people are like me. They wonder who you are. And when I first heard about you, read about you, the only thing that I could focus on at that time was just what you were, doing videos about and writing about in your blogs. And I knew that you were involved with the Kendrick Johnson case. But now that we've known each other for a while, it's very important to me to share different facets of you with the world. George has got he's got over 3,000 videos on YouTube. Used to have a radio show, Rivers Radio, in 1975 for radio broadcast. He's done a lot of things, but he's mostly known right now for his YouTube videos. He's got close to 500,000 views, people all over the world. And because I'm still learning about you, tell me when you noticed you started getting that many views. I mean, how long have you had the YouTube channel, and what was your very first video?
Well, I first started out blogging back in the late 90s after the death of Willie James Williams that died in the Lowndes County Jail from a takedown by Kevin Farmer, a sheriff deputy on South Lee Street. That particular jail death galvanized, we'd say around 25 to 3,000 people marched on the jail. And because of that, and I found out that the Lake Park Post did an excellent job in reporting what was not being reported. And so when I found out the Valdosta Daily Times was not doing a good job, in my opinion, I started blogging and I guess indirectly assisting the Lake Park Post and keeping the general public informed. And that's when I started blogging on a channel that they used to call PhiladelphiaNews.com. And I did that for a long time. And it wasn't that many people that was reading my blog, but yet I kept it out there. And so for some reason it seemed as if though hackers or somebody got into it because they didn't want that level of knowledge to be given out. And so by the time they destroyed that channel, I had moved on to blogger.com, and all I did was put the information right back up on Blogger. So that's how I started. Then from the blogging, I picked up a little camera. My friend and Reverend John H. Robinson, on my radio broadcast, he would film all of my radio talk shows called the CWD broadcast at that time, which was the Community Words of Deliverance. And so Mr. Robinson really made me feel bad because he actually would set the camera up and he would be on my program, and I never wanted to be a flashy person, but he started. And so after I saw the effectiveness of it, then I purchased a little camera, and then I started going to city council and others, and that what got me into this system of using the video. And people believe me, they surprised me when I first got on YouTube and they started hitting me up and viewing what I said around the nation.
I just realized that you have been involved with this community, so hands-on with that camera and going to city council meetings. And how often did you actually go to these public meetings and film? And at what year? In fact, let's go back and when was the Willie James Williams incident as far as you covering? Was that in 1998 as well?
Yes, that was in 1998. But if you go back into my activism, you have to go back to 1975. 1975 is when I arrived here to be stationed at Moody Air Force Base, and at that time I had followed the death of Earl Evans, who was a black man who I went to school with. He was a great basketball player. They shot him and burned him up in a police car, and I followed that because I was not here. But when I got here and to learn about James Demps, who had been shot in the back of Washington Funeral Home, I was very concerned about this community. So when I got here, I immediately went and took out a membership in the local NAACP in Brooks County, along with Theodore Small. This was way back, even before the Willie Jane Williams death. So I was involved back then. And I walked the streets in Valdosta, I walked the streets in Brooks County quickly, and got membership for people to join the organization so we could actually set up a chapter here in Valdosta. I am the one, along with a guy named Eugene Thompson, he's deceased now, and Ronald Chisholm. We walked the streets in Valdosta to get enough members to set up a chapter of the NAACP in Valdosta. Once we got enough people to set up a chapter here in Valdosta, and then I wrote to New York to get a copy, to get a charter, then the people from the old NAACP, I think they came in and I guess with a little dissension, they didn't want us to, they wanted to keep the old name and under the old charter. So I told them, which is my level of understanding, I don't like confusion. So I said, look, there's no fight. We'll just come under the old charter. We don't really care. What I want is that we just have an effective NAACP. And so I was happy that they listened to me, and we just came in under the old charter, reactivated the old charter. We elected officers, and that's how the NAACP reignited itself here. And most people don't know this. I got a little footage on some of my YouTube where Eugene Thompson, he's deceased now, on Lee Street, he met with me and said, George, those was the days. And it is true. But the bottom line, back in '75, when I first got here, I was stationed with the Air Force Base, I began to become active in the community. In fact, before the NAACP, the old pioneers like Arthur, Mr. Hizell, and Lewis Gordon, and the late Reverend Ross, the pastor of New Hope Baptist Church, and the Raft Council, and those, that's the old civil rights leaders in this community. When I came here, I didn't know what the heck was going on. But I knew that something needed to be done because of the death that I'd already known about over in Brooks County in particular. So that's where I really got connected up with what's going on here in the community. And so when I look back at it, I didn't see it as history. I didn't see it as being involved. I just saw it a way of life trying to bring about change, and that's what I did. Often my commanders at Moody Air Force Base wanted me to tell them what I was doing, and I told them, and they told me about the thin line and my rights in terms of what I could and could not do. And so I think my first major point of focus, I guess, was when a Georgia State trooper by the name of Trooper Duncan pulled me over and lied on me and said that I was speeding when I was not, had two witnesses in the car, and to cut it short, I took him to court, and the rest of it is history. But if you want to know more about it, but I mean, I don't know what drives me except for the fact that when I was 14 years old, I had a dream, and that dream pretty near led me into what I'm doing this day as a part of my makeup.
What was the dream?
Well, the dream was a commitment, and I say it was a call from God. My children, everybody that knows me, they know that they could explain it because I've told them. My late aunt, Ann Lee Nova, a lot of strange things started happening to me at an early age. I was blessed or cursed to be able to see into the future, not as a Jesus fanatic, but as a person that God, in my interpretation, had instilled something in me that would, even through my 21 years of armed forces, would be the beacon. It would be the driving force. It would be the peak of the pyramid that made me focus on what I did throughout life. And that dream was to commit myself, to be willing to die, to bring Brooks County, Lowndes County, the state of Georgia, in tune with the European white Caucasians who set this nation up on the principles I believe that Jesus would have been happy with, although that principle did not include the people from the dark continent of Africa. But I do believe that in that dream, intertwined everything that I stand for this day. That dream, my children heard me talk about it in the military. Because I said to my children, I hope that I'm not out of the will of God. I don't know if God wants me to stay in the military or if he wants me to come back to South Georgia and do what he gave me at the age of 14. There have been ministers right here in Valdosta who said to me, George, nobody could have done what you've done unless they was called of God. And the strange thing about it, my beautiful sisters, is in all of these years, I've been active in so many states and cities, including the helping to dismantle the government of South Africa. I marched in Tucson, Arizona to eliminate South Africa of the oppression of the Afrikaners. And what happened was that there was a group called the SWAPO. These was white people in America. My family, which is my wife and children, was the only black people that attended these meetings and in the marches for the most part. And we fought to dismantle that government. And we were successful. And I just thank God for him giving me that dream at the age of 14 to commit myself as white Europeans and black African Americans and others have fought to make this nation the great nation that it is today. So with that dream, in fact, I'm going to admit to you, my beautiful Caucasian sister, that I would like to go more into that dream in following the question that you asked, is that in that I can't give too much because parts of that dream is yet to be exposed to the outside world. My children know about it, but it was a very deep dream, and I'm committed to do and lead up to the final analysis that was given to me about that dream. And I don't believe so much in dreams. God allowed me to be able to look in a dream and ream out from any dream a new reality that would give birth to a new life, a new level of civilization, and a protection of the environment, if properly understood.
George, one thing I've learned about you in the nearly 7 or 8 months that we've spent getting to know each other is that you're very complex and not always as easy to explain. It's just, even just hearing what you just said and knowing you like I do, I also know how multidimensional your ideas of faith are. And as a Caucasian, as you call me, which I love, his Caucasian friend, it's always been evident to me that the black community, no matter where they are generally in America, has always manifested their faith openly and without any kind of apology or embarrassment or shame. But one thing I noticed when I met you is that you had ascended and you had begun to put together all these other ideas about purpose and spirituality. And I see how that all ties in. And I think that it's important to reflect back on that 14-year-old George. And I want to know what he was doing when he had that dream. Where was he living? Where was he going to school? What did he do every day? What was he like? Who was he?
You know, first of all, my beautiful sister, I want to thank you first of all. Many years ago, even Reverend Floyd Rose have said, about 15, 20 years ago, he said to me, George, you got to write a book. You should have 5 books by now. I thank you for inviting me for this interview. And I understand that you said it would be a long, drawn-out process. I want to thank you at this juncture. I was born in Thomasville, Georgia. On my birth certificate was George Boston, Jr. Little did I know when I started school that my name was George Boston Rhynes as far as my education. But as far as the legal status in the state of Georgia, my name is George Boston Jr. I don't talk about it much, and I'll tell you why. Around the age of 14, when I found out that my name was George Boston Rhynes, and I was brought up by my grandparents, Eliza and Howard Bright, in Brooks County, though I was born in Thomasville. I took a dining room chair and threw it across the floor. And whether people acknowledge it or not, I was in my, what you call it, those crazy years for a young person. You start feeling what God had made you. And so anyway, my grandmother being a wise person, and if there's any Christian, she was that. And some people disagree with me, but I can make that statement today about my grandma is this, is that if I get to heaven, and if my grandma is not there, then I want to turn to Peter, St. Peter that is, and to God himself and say, I want to go to hell. If she didn't make it, I don't want to be here. And I mean that with everything within me. But my grandmother said the next morning to me, June, which is my nickname, June, you gonna fix my chair? I said, yes, ma'am. Now, there was wisdom in that, because if she had said that night when I was angry about my name, she said that to me, and she said this to me, which is present until this day. She said to me, the name don't make the man, but the man makes the name. And that became a part of me. Now, so back to your original question. I forgot, I'm still on point. I was born in Thomasville. Around 5 or something like that, I was moved to Brooks County. Brooks County, we had all black schools. And I attended a little country church school up at Mount Moriah, they called it. And there was another school called St. Philip. These buildings are still there until this day. So I was brought up in Brooks County. It was a town, Brooks County was a town wherein there was a lot of prejudice. I remember the colored black and white water fountain, or something black and white, something they say colored. And I lived through that. I only remember the Klan. I have to remember, as a child, I only remember the Klan marching once. And that was on the south side of the courthouse. And they used to think when they came through, my grandma always told me, when the Klan was coming through, for black folks to get off the street. I remember that. And my grandmother in Brooks County always gave us the history about Nigger Branch, which is west of Quitman, kind of southwest. But today, they renamed that branch to Pride Branch. How I get from Nigger Branch to Pride Branch, I'll never know. And in addition to that, the children at the high school over there became concerned that they had the name changed, which was a good thing. I just don't understand why Pride Branch. And my grandma said that what they did was that they used to lynch blacks in front of the courthouse there in Brooks County, in Quitman really. And they would put them on the back of a wagon and take them to Nigger Branch. Not Pride Branch, but Nigger Branch. So if you ask any person in Brooks County, they'll tell you about Nigger Branch. They can give you the directions to Nigger Branch. But if you tell them Pride Branch, they couldn't take you there.
George,
yeah.
I've got an idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think because so many people from out of the state of Georgia, and even from out of the country even, are paying more attention to what's going on down here, I think it would probably be a good idea for us to kind of talk about this place and describe it so that people can envision it and kind of get the feeling for what it's like to be part of this environment.
Right.
And I'll start by saying that we're in Cook County, and I'm in my great-grandmother's house that was built 107 years ago. And it is roughly, what do you say, like 22 miles from Quitman,
Yes,
which is where he's talking about where Nigger Branch was. That's right, you heard a Caucasian say nigger. That's right. It's amazing. Doesn't happen often, but it is in certain terms. But Nigger Branch was on the highway. Was it on Quitman Highway? Because this is not something commonly known. I think it's important for everybody to understand.
Right. Quitman is on Highway 84, and that's west of Valdosta. It is south of, it is north of Greenville. It is definitely south of, major city would be kind of southeast of Yeah, of Albany. It would be east of Thomasville, and another little town called Boston, Georgia. And believe it or not, the next major city going from Valdosta would be Lake City and Gainesville if you're going strictly south on Highway 75. Highway 75 come right through Valdosta, and if you get off on exit 16, you make a right, it will take you through the small city of Quitman, Georgia. So that's the location of it, to give them a little overview of that. My grandmother told me about, and I was a child, all of us, I had 6 siblings, they told us about the makeup and who ran this area. She told us about that, and it was controlled by people that the large landowners. The Livingston Plantation is where a lot of blacks worked back in the day, and Blackwater Plantation and other plantations here. We also home to the Mary Turner lynchings and the Week of Terror of May 1918. And I think when I got here, I hadn't heard nobody talk about the Mary Turner lynchings, but
you knew about it, right?
I knew about it because my grandmother, and it's well known throughout the black community.
Is it, I mean, would even say a 17-year-old black kid in Valdosta, would they know about Mary Turner?
Today?
Yes.
No, they probably wouldn't, because a lot of people don't discuss that much.
Do you think that it's possible to attribute even today's racial tension to that event in 1918 to some degree?
No, I don't think they could. I don't think so. But there's a great possibility that the fear that lives in black folk may be a result of the Mary Turner lynchings, and the fear that it instilled in the hearts and minds and souls of black people, as well as maybe whites to be more fearful of blacks because of the fact that they think that maybe we're going to retaliate because of what happened to the black race. But when you look back, I think that it's different, and I don't think that we really could have tied the two together outside of what I just mentioned.
Well, I mean, I'm speaking from the Caucasian side, but George, I do feel like that having traveled like you all over life, and you think about the events that were critical, you know, crossroads, milestones, what would they be? What were the moments that changed your life, sent you in a new direction?
Well, mainly the dream that I had at the age of 14 about a commitment to civil rights and improving the laws and the way black African Americans and poor whites and others are treated in our world would be one major focus of my life. The next one would have to be when I arrived in Okinawa, Japan, and I found out that my world and my faith, what I've been taught along the lines of Christianity, my belief system, took a major reverse or stagnation, if you will, because I was introduced to mama-sans, those are the elderly Japanese women, who believed in the same thing as my grandmother. They was not a Christian, they talked about Buddha, and they talked about Hindu, and that was like Greek coming from the South, but they were beautiful people, and I developed a friendship with those people, and they would take me into the tombs, and I didn't supposed to be in those tombs of their ancestors, and they polished bones, and they would even go out to the ocean and take fruits and vegetables in a boat, canoe really, and push it out to sea, and they say they was doing that to feed the spirits of their ancestors. That really touched me. I later found out that my grandmother taught well. And they believed that if you was not a holiness, you was going to hell. But I had a holiness experience. And that is that, how could I send my Japanese people to hell when they believe the same thing that my grandma believed in? And that is wanting for your neighbor that which you won't have for yourself. And they even went a step further to feed the spirits of the ancestors. So that was another milestone in my life in the regards of taking what my grandma gave me, but adding to that to make me the person that I am today. But not only that, then I did the same thing with Islam on the Louis Farrakhan side of the house and W.D. Muhammad side of the house. And from there I went and sat down with the Jews under Judaism. And I learned that I didn't have it all. Then I started reading about Constantine and Alexandrian Library and King Khufu and Imhotep and all of these great men and women that nobody told me about. And so to narrow it down, I would have to say my second one would have been my religious outlook beyond what I had been given as a child. And I haven't found nothing wrong until this day to continue searching and seeking the greater knowledge so I can bring about the greatest world, not only for human beings and animals, but for the vegetation and the air and the water on this planet. So that was my second one. And then I guess my third one would must and have to be after the death of a 17-year-old student at Lowndes High School, Kendrick Johnson, found dead, rolled up in a mat. Sheriff Department said he fell in there trying to retrieve a shoe. And the father called me that night, the same night. I had gone to bed and I got up. It was about 11 o'clock. And Kendrick's father, Kenneth, said to me, "George, they killed my son." And little did I know that that call would be an indentation of carrying on the dream that I had when I was 14. And so I've been with the Johnson family and I will stay committed to them as they seek justice. But I find myself on May 25th, 2013 being pulled over by a Lowndes County Sheriff deputy, stopped and kept from going into a public meeting, the Lowndes County Board of Commissioners meeting. Couldn't go to the graduation. Told me I was under criminal trespass warning and that it had been in effect for 2 weeks that I knew nothing about. And he made it unequivocally clear that I would be arrested, although I hadn't done nothing but use a little camera. So I think that, to tell you the truth, those are the 3 majors in my life that have impacted this human being in ways that some people come on the planet and never even get to experience.
You raise an interesting notion that we discussed earlier about the fact that deaths of blacks is hardly a new occurrence. So when Kendrick's death occurred, it was shattering, of course, to the family, but probably not much of a surprise to the black community that something like that could happen. More so because it was on school property, perhaps, but I'm speaking from my perspective. What was it like from the black perspective when his body was found?
I could talk for hours on that. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to give you 3 different outlooks on it. Number one, many of the religious leaders in this community, beyond question, lives in fear. So whatever their opinions are, they're going to keep it to themselves. There are another segment of blacks in our community in particular who are what I call in the cliques and among the slicks. And so they see it different. But then you have another group of people who have actually experienced the fear as well as the repercussions of standing up for what is right, yet they find themselves doing it. And as a result, some of them can't get jobs. Some of them are locked out of the system, although they may have a master's degree or a PhD. So many people probably just said, why don't they just let that go? God will take care of it. Which have happened so many times. Blacks, they have no other alternative, so they say, God will take care of it. But there are too many black souls that are crying out from the grave. The graves of the 1500s. The graves of the 1800s, 1900s, right on, for justice. And so when black people repeatedly see their family members perish and they never get justice, they believe there is no justice in this system for the black man. So many of the black men in South Georgia, not just in Valdosta, have given up all hope. And it's kind of like what I call the flea syndrome to a degree. And I presented this same scenario before Valdosta City Council because of how they respond or fail to respond to the needs and issues of black people. A flea, you could put him in a cup. Put them in a cup. A flea will jump up trying to get out of this cup. They jump and they jump and they jump. And after a period of time, people look at the flea. His ability may not be able to get him up out the cup. Because somebody have measured this cup and know that the cup is a little higher than the flea is able to jump. The flea keep jumping until one day he stopped jumping. As the black man and woman and their children have stopped jumping. They say there's no hope. And so they stop. So we look over into the cup and we see the fleas at the bottom. And we would think that the flea has given up. But no. However fleas come into the world, they must be just trying to make love to produce some more little fleas so they can one day have hope that the one day they will get their freedom out of the cup. And personally, I think this is why I think Dr. King said that I have a dream that one day all of God's children, you get the message. And so Dr. King must have understood the flea. And so this is what the young people that we see standing up with Kenneth and Jacqueline concerning that death. But short form, to the question that you asked, there's major differences in terms of how we view the death of Kendrick Johnson. But in the black community and in the white right community, we know something is wrong. And sooner or later, the God of our ancestors, He will bring it out so the world will know that it's time for change now.
What do you think has driven the boom of interest on such a wide scale? Obviously, social media has something to do with it. Timeliness, like you said, the time is right, I guess, after 15 to all these souls. do you think that, can you tell a difference in the climate, whether it be from political changes or any kind of world changes? How do you see this all falling into place?
I see it falling in place in terms of what was written in the Bible, and something that blacks have always been taught, that heaven and earth would pass away, but truth and God's word will stand forever. And we see something unfolding in our world today that has never been unfolded to this degree before. We have more, although I may disagree with it, but regardless of how I feel about it, we have more interracial marriages now. That means, as in the civil rights struggle, and I have this happen to me, whites come to me and tell me, I have an interracial child, and they're discriminating against them. So you have white folk now, because of their own child, that's being discriminated against simply because of that dark pigmentation. They are bringing us information now of incidences and meetings that took place and takes place behind closed doors that we never had access before. We've always had some white right people to come and tell us what was going on. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be here today. And so the bottom line is that whites have finally come to the conclusion on a much broader scale now, as Dr. King said, their destiny is tied in to our destiny. Their children's future are now tied in with the black man's child destiny. We see foreigners coming in. They're not just taking the black people's job anymore. They're taking American jobs. We are now to the point now where we can see that white folks join black folks in America to elect the first black president of the United States of America. To be short form in answering your question, this is what is happening. We see a revolution of the mindset of the American white folk here in America. And so as whites try to hold on to power and to control and domination of the black race, we see white people with a greater mindset than we've ever had before. And so now they understand that they got to move closer to the Jesus concept of wanting for your neighbor that which you want and have for yourself. Because if white people don't want black people to have what they got, then they are denying themselves. And it's just that simple. And so when these white folk voted for President Barack Obama, in spite of all that they did to try to keep him from the Oval Office, white right people said, we believe that he's the best qualified. Not because he's black, not because he graduated from Harvard, but because of the fact that his record spoke for itself. And so, again, it's because of the mindset that I see in white people as well as black people, that we're going to either learn, as Dr. King said, how to live together here as brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers, and they could be like President Barack Obama, of mixed blood. But in the final analysis, we got to understand, Dr. King spoke of justice, freedom, and equality for all people. And when we bring it home, that's what happened with the election of this president. Somebody saw a need to do what's right in God's world. Although he's hated, we can live with that. Black folks have lived through all the venom that they could put upon us, and still we smile.
That was one of the coolest things I've ever heard. I've never even thought about that. That was amazing the way you just said that about the fact that white people's mindset, and this is something I've been trying to put into words but didn't even come close to encapsulating it like that, but I have been thinking that people in Georgia, even though there's all this racial tension, we still belong to one another.
Right.
It's still Georgia. You know, it's like, it doesn't matter how much racism there is, you see the relationships between them, even if it's in the shadows. And it's always been that way. Even when they were dominating the blacks and the slavery and all, there were still men sleeping with black women and having relationships that were their true selves, probably more so than what they were showing in the light. And I think that that has continued generationally, and I think it continues to this day with people hiding behind these church altars, especially whites, you know, because they don't act the same way.
My beautiful sister, let me interrupt you here. I want all Americans to understand something, and that is the old ancient monster called fear. In the word fear, you have F-E-A-R. The last three letters in there is what? In the word fear. Is E what? A-R.
Oh.
All right. Fear. F-E-A-R. The ear. If you get rid of the F, you got the ear. And the Bible tells us, let he who hath an ear hear. The truth hath been spoken. John Brown, Malcolm X, and others. But fear, like the F, blocks the ear. And many white folk, like many black folk, they fear. And so you got Caucasians right here in Valdosta, Lowndes County, South Georgia in general, and in the state of Georgia. They are not happy. They was, as you said earlier, they wasn't happy what was going on in the Ancient of Days. But what happened was this, that fear. They didn't only fear black folk. White people feared other whites who would do things to them because of the God spirit that was in white folk. All white people did not participate and did not agree with the slave trade. And history is an example of that, because from the beginning of time you will see whites speaking out. They may not have spoken out loud, but behind closed doors they spoke out. And many of them helped. And all one would have to do is look down the archival record or just check out the Underground Railroad. And it was white folk who owned the land. It was white people who had their houses. It was white people who had the contact with other whites to secure blacks' safe passage on up to the northern states. And in some cases, even safe passage after they got up north, because there was also people up north looking to bring those slaves back to the south. And so I wanted to interject that, because sometimes we don't quite understand that white people are living in fear as well. I can speak right here in Valdosta, people who work at the Lowndes County Sheriff Department, and let me put it like this, in law enforcement, in other positions of power, they come and talk to me behind closed doors. And I have to admit, I've said it so many times on these tapes, most of my information come from white people. They can't say it, and they won't say it. But maybe that's why God gave me that dream when I was 14, because I don't mind putting it out there if you bring it to me. Because Jesus said, and ye shall know the truth, and that the truth shall set and make you free. And without truth, there can be no freedom. My beautiful sister, back on you.
George, from your perspective, how do you feel about, how do you think black people feel about the fear that you...
The white fear that's
Yes.
in, the white fear that's, the fear that's in whites.
Right.
I feel like the best avenue or approach, personally coming through my head anyway, is that whites need to, and I don't want to speak for whites, but I think that what they need to do is follow what they feel in their heart that they've gathered from church, and the following the teachings of Jesus Christ. In other words, whites need to act on wanting for your neighbor that what you want to have for yourself, because that's the teaching of Jesus.
I don't think it comes natural to them.
Right, that's natural. I think at the same time, I don't mean to put fear in terms of why whites don't step up to the plate anymore. Or I'm not being harsh on whites than I am black preachers or the black religious communities. Because I'm involved in civil and human and women's rights. And wherever I go, you don't find the church or religious community standing up on the issues. I don't care whether it's Christianity, Al-Islam, or Islam, or Judaism, or Hinduism, or any other, or atheist, or any other that you can call. And so I think that until we as quote-unquote human beings accept the fact that we are not walking in what has been defined or what we believe to be human beings. And if we are not walking collectively and spiritually as human beings, there's a great possibility that we all have been hoodwinked, that we all have been bamboozled, that we all have been taken out of our original state of mind, and we all about half crazy. And when somebody, especially what we call the human beings, if you cannot feel the pain of another life source, not just human beings, but of a life source, then to tell you the truth, I believe you're lacking. So to narrow it in, I believe that not only white people, but all of us collectively must understand that even a lion has some level of nature or nature God in him or her, in that they just don't go around killing squirrels unless they have a need of survival. So why is it that we kill each other just to do it? Have we been programmed through TV, radio, or some other means to act less than what the Creator made us to be and do? That's just a question. The bottom line between the fear, if I was a Christian, or if I was a Muslim, or if I was a religious person, I would just say, turn to God and He'll take care of everything. Because I used to believe that. I don't anymore. I think that we all got to see some God in us and act accordingly. And because mankind have gotten so far off track until we need to look at the lion, the tigers, and the bears when it comes down to how we should treat other life sources. I haven't seen a cow yet to go out and pollute the air that will finally kill all of us. I haven't seen a dog yet put chemtrails in the air with small particles of aluminum, I'm told, and other chemicals that could destroy the planet. And so I believe that we need to take our example from others in the city of nature.
Earlier, you and I discussed some things about how there's been disinformation regarding the violence of the black community. And I've noticed that increasingly as I've gotten older. How have you witnessed that, and how are you able to relate that to people listening? because that, I think, is probably going to be a major enlightening moment for many.
Okay, you mean the violence in the black community?
I think a lot of white people have this, you know, this delusion that blacks are violent by nature, and young black youths or male youths are just ready to, you know, to mug you if they get you in a dark corner. And I think that that's not an exaggeration.
Well, that's a very
that's
good.
not me.
That's a very good question. The best way I learned from Elijah Muhammad. He's a Muslim. I'm not a Muslim, but I take information from everywhere. And he said, the best way to judge over a dirty glass of water is just to set a clean glass of water aside and let the people choose for themselves. And I believe that to find out who have done the most destructive things against their fellow man is to look down the annals of history and truth. In other words, just look at history. I'm taught that history is the best reward of all research, no matter what you do. And so when you look in the black man's path, and we were in power in the beginning according to the history that I've read, we never dropped a nuclear bomb on anybody. Now, we had wars. Hannibal was a great general. They even patterned the day's wars after that great general. But when it comes down to just outright violence, the black man, especially in America, we didn't do that. That is reserved for some other person. Blacks, I thought, and I believe, brought from Africa, and Africa's not the name of that continent, by the way, either. That was a European white general that went into Africa and killed people. So let's make that straight at the beginning of this interview. If you relegate a people and you tell them for centuries that they are not human, that they are 3/5 of a human being, and if you tell them that they were cursed, if you take away their name, their God, their religion, their culture, even their family members, and leave them in a foreign nation, never to be heard of again, we can only imagine what the children will be like who had to live under and in that type of environment. If any other race of people was told they were inferior, given a Savior, a Messiah, and a God that looked different from the way that they look, what impact would that have on that group of people or the children that were produced by the fathers and mothers who had that inferior complex? It would not be kind, and it would not be good. And so when we look out today at the way young black men are killing each other, and I cannot give any justification for the way the young black man is destroying himself. It seems as if, though, they have lost all knowledge of self. Because if you don't know who you are, then it's easy to kill another human being. But if you had family ties and you believed and you had a future that you believed that if if you exceed in life, you could reach the same thing as anybody else. But what has happened now is that the black man and woman feel that if they get, look, let's back up a little bit. A lot of the crime in the black community is because of the lack of income, the lack of good jobs, the lack of feeling that I can get the same job as a white person or a Japanese or anybody else. And the thing about it, generation after generation, children from the black experience see this happening over and over again. Look, Booker T. Washington, down there in Alabama, Tuskegee, he taught the talented 10th concept. He believed that if you go to school, get an education, and do what is right in the eyes of American law, that you could be successful. So the black man and woman went out and did that. They got education. And nothing happened. They said and taught that if you have a Masonic lodge, like the white man, you can be successful. And you will be accepted. So Prince Hall went out and set up the African Lodge, thinking that they would be treated as equal. But guess what? Nothing happened. Then they said, well, if you just allow us to integrate with white people, then things would change. So we walked in the streets and we marched and we protested, and then we got integration. And what happened? Nothing. In fact, most blacks today, and white as well say, integration was a bad thing. So, they say, if they let us go into the armed forces and show that we are patriots of this nation, things would change. As if though they didn't understand that we fought in every great war of this nation. Even the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, we were there, every war. But yet, nothing happened. And so, now, the young man and woman believe there's nothing that they can do that will cause that white European man to accept them as an equal. And so many of the young boys, they have their pants down as a statement. You don't tell us what to do anymore, white America. You don't tell us what to do anymore, bishops. Pastors, you don't tell us what to do. Because what you did don't work for us. You told us about a white Jesus. You told us about religion. And you told us about refried beans. And many of us don't want nothing redone, refried, while we don't even want to redo our homework. And so it's to the point now where these young folk eyes are open, wide open. And they are saying not only to white America, but to black leaders as well, you have had your chance to make this thing equal, and you failed severely. And so now, we are going to show you by showing our ass when they pull their pants down. They don't give a damn about your justice system. They don't give a damn about your Jesus that didn't work for them. They don't give a damn about your Muhammad that didn't work for them. They know that they're not being employed. They know who they're selling drugs for. They know the right judges, and they know the crooked judges. They know the right members of law enforcement and the just members of law enforcement, and they also know the crooks, because many of them are out selling drugs for them. And so, we are at the last days of the reign of the wicked. And if I may bring it home, I will bring it home like this. We just left the age of Pisces in the clock of the zodiacs. I know you all say it's satanic. That's okay. That's okay. Keep living. We just left the age of Pisces, which is the double fish. You remember that? But now we're in the age of Aquarius, whether you like it or not. And the age of Aquarius is dealing with the water. Get it? The water. No more fish heads. It's about the water. You notice the ice is melting in Arctic. Yeah. And we got to understand that these children came from the water. What do you mean by that? Every mother, water must first break before the child come forth. So that means our children, they are looking for a new age. They are looking for a new movement. They are looking for truth now. All the lies that have been told. If we are a free democratic society, where in the hell are our freedoms? Why are we now being suppressed, controlled, and abated? Remember, the age of Aquarius is the breaking of the water. So we are about to see the real truth come forth. And water brings about life. Without water on this planet, there will be no life. And so now, that's where we are today. And so our children, believe it or not, they know something is about to happen.
When I was a little boy, there was a lot of love. Love between brothers and sisters, neighbors and friends. There was so much love until I thought that love would never end. But today, as I look around me, I see so much hatred and killing everywhere. So if you got someone that loves you, I'll tell you today, you better love them back. Where did all the love go? Somebody tell me, where did it go? Where did all the love go? Somebody tell me, where did it go? There was a time if a neighbor saw you in distress, they would come running to help. These days, they'll just drive by just to see what's going on, so they can call their friends and tell them on the cell phone. As a people, where are we going from here? What will the future be like? Will things get better, or will it get worse? If we don't come together, I'm sure in the future, things will be worse. Where did all the love go? Somebody tell me.